reel, and we're going to turn up my mic so that everybody can hear me. And there we go. Look at that. I am such a technical aficionado. Good morning, everybody. This is 360 Performance every Friday, 11 o'clock, Mountain Standard Time, right here in wonderful Colorado. And I'm telling you, we have the most beautiful day. If you have the sniffles or a little bit of reluctance to get up and go, get outside because it will change your mind.
Is that on?
It is on.
Can't hear it.
Can't hear it? Okay, we're gonna check things. Make sure we're checking there. That's good. Everything's good there. Yeah, I just turned it up though, Henry.
Oh.
I had it turned down,
Okay.
so I just turned it up. You know, it's wonderful to be in a professional setting, and even more wonderful to have everything organic.
Yeah.
And there's acceptance.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. There's acceptance of the faux pas that we have. So we're starting our show like we do every day. Every Friday, with our thoughts on gratitude. And I'm grateful for a lot of things, but today, because of our guest today, she caused me to think about things, as did her colleagues that introduced me to Susie. And here, I'm grateful for this. That I'm in control of my next step, and that I have the freedom to pursue my dreams. You know, I'm my only worst enemy. I'm the one that limits whatever I do and how far I take it. So I've been recharged with that mission. Not that I need a lot of pushing, but Susie Brown Sachs, I want to formally recognize all parts of who you are and get to know you even better today in support of your mission and your dream that mission fulfills in getting this seventh, I can't even believe this, your seventh album fully funded. And as we get to that discussion, let me make sure I share with everybody our mindset moment that we start off every week with, a quote that leads us to this end of week situation with our show. And that quote, it goes like this: if you have a positive attitude and constantly strive to give best effort, eventually you will overcome your immediate problems and find you are ready for greater challenges. I think that's very apropos, and so does Pat Riley, who said that. An NBA coach. I love athletics because it's metaphorically so relevant for me, and I can stretch it, as I tend to do, into all different genres.
Yep.
And it seems appropriate to say those words in introducing you all to Susie Brown, a singer, songwriter, and wait for it, and medical professional. Not just in any medical professional genre, but a cardiologist. Somebody who literally looks at the heart and makes decisions about what can we do for this heart in getting it to a better place. And maybe it's replacing it and getting something that will sustain life from that point forward, because she works in the heart transplant unit at Vanderbilt University in wonderful Tennessee. Welcome to the show, Susie.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
What are you grateful for?
I always start with my kids and my family. Nothing beats them.
That's a great start and an end, too. That's a great place to land. Let me give everybody a little bit of an idea of who you are professionally as a musician and singer-songwriter. You have on paper, you have such a wonderful wealth of experience, not only on the stage, but in what you did on the stage and what it brought to you. And that list includes awards, a recognition from Forbes magazine, People magazine, CBS, The Morning Show. I mean, I'm going on and on and on. I'm looking at this and going, hold on a minute. She's kickstarting her seventh album. And that just seems to be a little bit askew for me, based on what I know about the entertainment field, the sports world, because with talent like that, the recruiters are coming after you. The agents are asking you to sign, to put you on their list of talent. What's going on? I don't understand. Help me.
I have a job that I take really seriously that requires a lot of me. I do work part-time, so I work on a 2-week on, 2-week off schedule. But when I'm on, I'm on. And I'm also a mom, and I really prioritize being there for my kids. So that adds up to me not touring as much as most musicians, um, and me not really having as much time to publicize myself and put myself out there. It's been a struggle, especially having, I mean, just having anyone who has young kids knows it's hard to do, even just to get the dishwasher loaded per day, never mind making the records. But I'm really proud that in the 8 years since I've had kids, I've made, this is my 4th album that I've made. So I've kept making my art, but the promotion side and the touring side is the part that that kind of suffers. And I don't feel bad about that. I'm super clear on my priorities, that my priorities are my family first, and that my work is really important to me, and I would never want to compromise that. But like, music feeds my soul in a way that, like, I will bend over backwards to keep making records and keep writing songs, even when it's really hard to do so. But I haven't really looked for the big label deal or a booking agent or that kind of thing because of my other priorities, and because the way I have it now, I don't have the fame and fortune, sure, but I can make my art, and
Yeah.
I can like live according to my values.
Well, Susie, it's such a great segue for what I'm going to ask you now, but I'm going to set up the question with this remark, because I've been around success and failures at very high levels. Peaks are really high and the valleys are really low, both for myself as well as for the areas of business that I support and work with, which is sports and entertainment and the C-suite executives. And in that, I have found so many different ways to make the scenario work. Your scenario is your scenario. It doesn't have to be changed because that's the way the industry has done it for so many years.
Exactly.
So I will challenge the industry to find you. So here's what I did as an example. Do you happen to know who Gayle King is?
Yes. Yeah.
I sent Gayle a direct message this morning through Instagram, and I said, Gayle,
Really?
yeah, I said, Gayle, do you remember interviewing Susie Brown? Well, Susie's getting ready for her 7th album, and I think she needs a few props from you, and a few, that of girls, and kind of give your message out there, because she needs the funding. Come on, let's get this Kickstarter thing. So that's my example of challenging the industry to say, look, the status quo is over. Technology is so great. Talent is so prolific. Just because that's Susie's recipe for her life doesn't mean she shouldn't be on the big stage or bigger stages at the time frames.
It felt kind of good. Like, I felt it hasn't been easy. It's not easy for anyone, but I'm not a self-congratulatory person. I know my music is good. My music is honest. My music is good. My music makes people cry at my shows. I know that I'm telling a truth that people want to hear. But I haven't gotten the external recognition that I know it merits, because I'm not out there, and I'm not willing to give up time with my kids, and I'm not willing to give up being a doctor, like, to do what it would take to get those pats on the back.
Well, and let me
sort of like plugged along, and just, but what really means to the most to me is writing the music and putting the music out, and that's what I've really just kept doing, like making my art. And in the last year, somehow the stars have aligned, and I've started getting the recognition that I know I've deserved.
You certainly do, and I want to suggest to our audience out there in the community that I serve every Friday that you look at Susie's music on her website. And Susie, help me out. I don't have it clear in my head. Give me the website.
SusieBrownSongs.com.
Okay.
S-U-Z-I-E, Brown like the color, and then songs with an S at the end.
So when you guys look at the website, go right to the song Give and the video. Because if you want to understand the connection of Susie's music to her medical profession and career, that song talks to that. Because she's given all the time. And I'm not saying you regret it. That's not who you are. You give, and as I said before we went on air, we sometimes forget about ourselves.
Yeah.
And you're so good at it.
That's what music does for me. I spend most of my life giving to my patients and giving to my kids and my family. But music is the time where I can check in with myself and figure out, like, how am I feeling? Who am I? Like, what do I have to say? It's the one, like, respite I have to just be with myself.
So in a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to share some of that musical talent. But before I do that, tell our audience a little bit about what draws you to be a singer-songwriter when you started off on a very aggressive medical career. I mean, cardiologist is not just your casual, practitioner.
Yeah, I was pretty confused for a long time. I've always loved to sing. A lot of people say I love to sing, but I mean, when I say I went deep into the music I went deep. My last year of college, I got up the guts to try out for an a cappella group. So that was kind of the first time I really sang in public, and it was like, I just could not get, it's sort of cliche to say I never knew where I really fit in, and I can fit in a lot of different places, but it was when I found that group that I realized, oh, creative people are my people. This is where I feel most like myself. But I was already on this track to go to medical school, and I didn't play an instrument, I'd never written a song, it was all very confusing. So I took 2 years off between college and medical school to work in a lab, and it was during that time that I bought a guitar and started teaching myself how to play. And then at the end of that time, right before medical school, I went to Berklee College of Music for a summer, and I took voice lessons for the first time, and I learned some music theory, and I was in a band, and then I had this huge existential dilemma at the end of the summer. I was crying in my voice teacher's office thing, like, I'm so confused. And she just said, Susie, you're good at more than one thing. My advice to you is, like, go be a doctor and make time for music later. So I went to medical school, and I kept just playing in my dorm room. I would do some open mic nights and shows, like, affiliated with the school when I could. And that kind of continued, just trying to pepper it into my medical training, until the very end of my training, when I was sort of faced with, like, finding my first job, and really faced with, like, who do I want to be in the world? How do I want to spend my time? And it became so clear to me that I was different from the other people who were really happy to spend all their time in the hospital. That just wasn't me, although I valued it so immensely. And I feel like it's something I'm called to do. For sure, I'm called to be a doctor, and I would never give it up. But I would go to bed at night thinking about music, and wake up in the morning thinking about music. And I just didn't know what to do with that information, but I knew that something was different. So long story short, I started writing songs during that time and started performing them, and I just realized I have to have time for this. So after my training was finished, I looked for a part-time job.
Well, Susie, your differences make differences. People resonate with you, and I'm getting a sense of that just by immersing myself in the music you've written, the music you've shared on the internet, and in talking to the colleagues of mine that you know. And we'll give a little shout out to Patrick. But I'm going to give a quote in kind of a lead up to you sharing a little bit of your music with us. The quote comes from Gayle King, and Gayle said when she interviewed you on CBS Good Morning, Gayle said this: "I love everything about you, Susie. You're wearing a lot of hats and wearing them all really well." And I think that in essence captures, yeah, exactly. That in essence captures the essence of who you are. So now, with the understanding of that fit and what brought you, how songwriting came up in your world, there is rhythm and pace in being a cardiologist. The creativity of that profession has an influence, I'm going to guess, on your writing and your musicality.
Well, I think what I learned most from going through medical training is just grit and determination.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I learned a lot of things. I mean, grit, and I mean, you have to be kind of a Viking to just make it through the training. So I can work harder than, I can work hard. And it definitely takes that to be a musician. I also learned, how to ask for help, because we do it all the time in medicine. If we're not sure about a case, we call a colleague and ask them.
Yeah.
So that's an easy thing for me to do, to admit, like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I'm sure there's someone who knows how to do this better than me. Like, even just with the nuts and bolts of the music business, booking, and I don't know, just all that stuff. So yeah. I love the collaboration. I'm not afraid to ask for help.
Well, I'm glad that we got connected. So in the genre of sharing and asking for help, give us a few musical representations of what you do, and
Okay.
I'll let you pick. Even though I suggested give, that's one of my favorites now. As is I Choose You, Almost There. I mean, I'm just getting a whole library now in my head. But I want you to pick what's timely for driving us towards funding this 7th album.
I thought maybe I would play a song that's going to be on my new album that's coming out May 20th. This is the one that I'm fundraising for. This is the first single that came out earlier in the month and was premiered by People magazine.
Yeah.
That was quite a moment. It's called Till I Make It to You, and the idea for the song came while I was driving home from work one day. Vanderbilt's on the west side of town, and I live on the east side of town. And pre-COVID, there was a lot of traffic. And so I was sitting in a traffic jam after a really long day and just so desperately wanted to get back to my family, get back to that comfort, that respite. And I texted my husband, I was stuck on the west side. And then I thought, like, well, I have to write something to capture that feeling of being almost home, but, like, I can't quite make it there.
Well, everybody, here's Susie Brown.
Here I am on the west side of town, one more out till the sun goes down. When in God's name will we start moving? Station talks about the weather. We are all alone together, sitting in our worn out leather seats. Somewhere else to be. Ooh, just a mile or two till I make it to you, till I make it to you. Ooh, I'll be home in a few. Set the table for two. I'm just making it through till I make it to you. Here I am now, the night is falling. Haven't seen you since 6 this morning. Every day feels longer than the last. When you wait for time to pass inside this hourglass. Ooh, just a mile or two till I make it to you, till I make it to you. I'll be home in a few. Set the table for two. I'm just making it through till I make it to you. Sometimes the day just hits me harder, and home feels just a little farther. Oh, just a mile or two till I make it to you, till I make it to you. Ooh, I'll be home in a few. Set the table for two. I'm just making it through till I make it to you, till I make it to you, till I make it to you.
Outstanding, Susie, outstanding. And it seems so fitting, the lyrics, to not only your journey across from the west side to the east side of Nashville, but also for people's journeys from East Ukraine to West Ukraine,
For sure.
from any journey
From
that
the
people.
hospital to home.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's very, very, very fitting what you're saying in those lyrics. I can't emphasize it enough, everybody, that the mission here for me is always about performance, but connection of performance to practical outcomes. That you are not fooling yourself about your potential, that you work hard, you get in it, you really do the job that's necessary, and then you deliver precisely to what you expect of you in that moment. And for me, right now in this moment, Susie Brown epitomizes that for me. So when you were on your journey to get to this place you're at right now, Susie, there's a constant mix. I mean, family, kids, the job as a cardiologist and life in general, just and put connection of all those parts. What about the medical side of your experiences in education have fueled the songwriting? I mean, the obvious is the lyrics. I mean, you talk about the journey on the trip, but then there's that creative force, that energy from within you.
I think it's sort of what medicine. It's not what it takes for me, but it's that medicine requires that you put everything else before yourself. The patient comes first. That's just the way it is. Like when I was a fellow in training in Philadelphia, I had no hot water for like 10 days because I was working every day and I couldn't be home for the plumber, and I just like showered at the hospital. I mean, you just, if you have a stomach ache, if you have a headache, you just go to work. And if things are falling apart, if your heart is broken, you just go to work and you give and give. And I think that kind of created a space that I needed to fill, which is a space where I come first. How I'm feeling is the most important thing. And so medicine, I guess, kind of created the need for music in me, because it's kind of like medicine is selfless. You just give everything of yourself.
Yeah.
Music is kind of narcissistic. It's all about you and how you're feeling. But that's so important to have. I love having both. It's nice to not be in my head sometimes. It's nice to not be thinking too much about myself sometimes. But then sometimes I really need to come back to myself. So having those two parts of my life, I feel like is really balancing.
Well, you know more and better than most about the blend of the psychological, the cognitive processes as it relates to the healing process. But sometimes I don't want to wait to have to cut myself or break a bone to experience that exchange. But at the same time I say that, psychology would say to us, there's always a healing. If you're upset, you get frustrated, you have anxiety, those are moments to heal. Somebody dies, those are moments to heal.
Well, and it's so easy to not even understand what you're anxious about, what you're sad about, what you're frustrated about. I mean, we're so busy anymore,
Yeah.
And you can just numb yourself out with the phone and with Amazon.com, buy something, get a little dopamine hit, have ice cream, have a drink, all the ways we just numb ourselves out. We're just missing out on our lives. We're missing out on everything that's happening.
That's a great place for me to talk about the album, because you have set this album up to deal with resiliency, resolve, maintaining a perspective. Even though the songs are generated from your experiences and what you go through, just like what you just sang to us, that resonates with people because it's an everyday experience. It relates to the kind of the boots on the ground common person trying to make a living. What would you add to that about this album and how the timing of the release is so appropriate for today?
I mean, these songs are just really honest portraits of what my life has been in the last couple of years as a person living in a pandemic, as a mother living in a pandemic, as a wife, just as a person. The one thing that was neat about this album is that I got back to writing songs by myself again. I had been doing a lot of co-writing since I moved to Nashville because it was a really easy way to defend my creativity while having young kids and just being so overwhelmed by just keeping toilet paper in the house. But then I started spooking myself, like, oh, maybe I don't know how to do it by myself anymore. But the pandemic challenged that, and I said, well, I wrote 3 albums by myself. It's got to be in there somewhere. So I got back to writing by myself in stolen moments when, like, I was trying to homeschool my kids. I set them up with a coloring sheet and go work on a song. It's, I think, much more, not much more, because I feel like all my music is honest, but it's, yeah, it's just me in these vulnerable moments.
All right, so give us an update. We've got the website, and when you open up the homepage, it's right there. It says donate. So we're looking at a $25,000 goal. Are we over the 15,000 mark yet?
Let me check. I'll give you a real life.
A real time. I love it.
Yeah, we're definitely over 15,000. Yeah, we're at 16,542.
What's the minimum contribution somebody can make?
$5.
There you go. $5.
So it's kind of like the price of an expensive latte.
Yeah.
Give your latte to me.
Yeah, exactly. I like that analogy. That's a great metaphor. Buy 2 lattes, but one of them goes to a donation to Susie Brown in this new album. And the new album's title is what?
It's called Some See the Flowers.
I love that title.
And it's after the first song. It's called Some See the Flowers, Some See the Graves. The lyric is, some see the flowers, some see the graves, some hear the song in the noise of the day. The same old story isn't always the same. Some see the flowers, some see the graves. So it's just all, I mean, this year has been so challenging for everyone, but it's sort of about how a lot of your life is how you see it.
You make me think about what I tell my athletes in a different perspective. I tell my athletes, you need to be more aware, especially men. Men have difficulty being vulnerable. They're opening up their awareness.
Oh, for sure, yes.
And through the pandemic, for some, it's heightened their ability to be aware, or they would have gone crazy. They have to, take a walk and be away from people, and being alone is not an easy thing for a lot of people. So when you talk about the album and what the songs are doing within the album, what's the story you want to tell with the entire album? I mean, there's all the music, all the songs that are in there that make it up, but is it thematic? Do all the songs kind of land on a line that you're trying to tell a grander story?
I didn't write it intentionally that way. Let me pull up the song list. I didn't write it prospectively that way. I really wrote it spontaneously as the songs came. I just wrote them. I mean, I think there's a lot of songs about vulnerability.
Yeah, I think
I've always been a really tender-hearted person, which can be either a liability or a superpower, depending on, the situation. But there are several songs that kind of address what would it be like, like Bulletproof is the third single that's going to come out. It's like, I wish I was bulletproof. And the song that's coming out today, actually I have a new song that came out today called Wide Open. Yeah, so there's a lot of songs about vulnerability, about adjusting,
Well, see, and here's what I'm going to ask you to think about. I know you wrote each song in one moment. It was a moment in time. You got the feeling, write the song, with not really a thought about, are they connected? Are all the songs I wrote that I'm going to put in this album connected?
Well, I have more songs than I put on this album, and you do choose the songs on the album that go together. Yeah. So in that way, yeah.
I believe that the energy you put out in those moments represent the total definition of your energy. So in some way, like you just mentioned, there's a vulnerability thread here. Yeah, I can kind of see that. And I want to make sure my audience and those that you speak to understand that music is therapeutic for a lot of people. In this case, we've talked about Susie, and the therapy has brought her throughout the years and has now extended to other people. So, Susie, when you look in the faces of patients, like there are testimonials of patients that love you to death because of what you did to preserve their life, do those faces come to you when you write? Do you see those images? Do you feel that energy? It's truly from you.
Weird. It's just from me in my life. It's not, I don't write about medicine so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a few songs that address mortality. I definitely think about that. But no, it's really just like, it's so deeply personal.
I like that.
Where the songs, it's not,
So
I feel like it comes from the deepest, darkest.
you're going to be at the Bowery Vault tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Nashville.
Yeah.
And so when you go into a venue and you're going to obviously going to talk to them about, we've got 6, 7, whatever many days left, you know, get on your phones and donate while you're here listening to my music. But when you look at the audience, or do you look at the audience? I've got some entertainers that don't even see the audience. They just are within their performance. When you go, when you're going there tonight, where do you land? Are you going to see faces, or are you just you immerse yourself in that song in that moment?
I think it depends who's in the audience. You know, if there are people I know and fans, I like to sing to them.
Yeah.
You know, but I always try and. I mean, you want to feel. Even the ones you've sang 100,000 times, you know, you want to feel them the way you felt them the day you wrote them. That's how you put it across. That's how they'll get it. That's how they'll get the song.
Yeah.
They have to feel what you were feeling when you wrote it.
So with that feeling, what's your favorite song on the album?
Oh, it's so hard. They're all my
Oh, come
babies.
on. Come on.
I think Till I Make It to You is one of my favorites. I'm so proud of this album. I mean,
I love the artwork on the cover.
everyone says like, "Oh, this is the best music I've ever made," and sometimes you roll your eyes at that. But then I sort of changed my mind about rolling my eyes at that, because it should be the best music you've ever made. Your new album should be the best music you've ever made. If it's not better than what you did before, you got to keep working. You know.
Yeah.
So I can say, this is the best music I've ever made. I'm so proud of it. It's truthful. I love the production. I think it makes you feel things.
Talk a little bit about the production and those who join you instrumentally on the album. Give them some props. Talk to me about who's on the album with you.
This one was different because we started this album in December of 2020.
Yeah.
I had barely just gotten my first shot because I got early access for being a doctor, and my producer, who produced my last album as well, he had COVID, so we were kind of in this kind of safe, relatively safe place to start working together indoors. But first of all, I wasn't really even close to being in a place to share any music with anyone really besides him. I just had written all these songs, and I was finally feeling emotionally awake enough to record them. But I hadn't sent out a mailing list email in like 9 months. I just was so emotionally exhausted and just trying to keep going. But anyway, so he has a home studio that's about a mile from my house, less than that. So I went over there after dinner when I could, and we would just throw paint against the wall, just me and him. So I would play guitar, he would play guitar, he would play bass, and it was just really the two of us doing all the instruments and harmonies to get a skeleton of the album. And then as time went by, we did invite more people to collaborate, including a keyboard player who lives in New Jersey, did it all electronically. And then eventually we had a drummer come and play drums in a real studio on some but not all of it.
So who's your producer person, and what's his company?
His name's Billy Harvey, and he is in Nashville as well. I don't know if he has a company. Billy Harvey.
Just Google Billy Harvey once you hear the tunes on this album. And quite honestly, I've listened to it, and the production is it's really awesome. Really awesome.
It really is. I'm so grateful to him. He's such a champion. He doesn't have his own agenda. He wants the songs to be the way I envision them. He does everything to just support the song, not his own,
agenda, right. So you mentioned that in your progression through training, voice lessons, and all the different people that you've met, you got this musical style of your own that's uniquely Susie Brown's. And I've been listening to some of the tunes, not as much as I'm going to, but I hear a little R&B in your voice. I hear some tones of soul, I'm not going to label it as Southern soul, but just soul. There's some gravitas in there, and then I hear that those professional training pieces in the runs, and you're moving from one note to the next, and I'm just kind of curious as to who's your biggest musical influence? Who do you resonate with?
Yeah, it's hard because that changes so much too. But I would say I started with like just singer-songwriters of the 70s. That's, I think, my biggest genre influence.
Yeah.
Um, I've listened to a lot of old Bonnie Raitt, ton of old
Oh,
Bonnie
you
Raitt.
took the word.
Hardcore.
Yeah, you took her right out of my mind. I mean, I was listening to you, and then Bonnie Raitt was on a show just a few days ago.
I saw that, yeah.
And I went, oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah.
So she's one of my favorites. The other one is Nina Simone.
I love Nina Simone. I listened to a lot of Nina Simone.
And Billie Holiday. I mean, I'm an
Yeah.
old school jazz
100%.
and soul person, but they were both influenced by country.
I've listened to a ton of both of those artists.
So so I know it's hard to pick a song or pick an artist that you really gravitate
I
towards.
love Taylor Swift too. I love pop music.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I do, and I'm not ashamed of that. I love great pop music. I love Taylor Swift. In terms of contemporary artists that I'm influenced by currently, Taylor Swift, and I love Maren Morris. I don't know if you.
Yeah.
She is just unbelievable as a writer, and then also as a performer. But yeah, I'm really digging on Maren Morris.
Well, those two, Maren Morris and Taylor Swift, they both have admitted to their Jersey soul music, the Kansas City jazz kind of stuff. So I can hear that in your voice, just the way you interpret a song from those two. That's really cool stuff. So Kickstarter, talk to me a little about this. Is kind of a lesson for young people in that singer-songwriter genre. Is Kickstarter, or I shouldn't say just Kickstarter, but fundraising on your own, is that a recommended strategy? I mean, obviously it's not the ideal. You'd love to have somebody really pull it together for you quickly, but is it a good place to be? And what are some of the things you'd recommend to them to be aware of if they pick a Kickstarter fundraising vehicle to fund their music and albums?
I think it's a way. I mean, if you have a goal you can't afford, it's a way to achieve it without a label paying for it. And I will say nowadays, to have a record deal where they're actually giving you any sort of budget is really rare.
Yeah.
Those deals almost don't exist anymore. So
Yeah.
pretty much everyone is an independent artist. Even people who are signed to a label are kind of independent artists financially. I'm actually signed with a small Nashville label to release this album, but there's no money involved in the deal.
Yeah.
It's just sort of the brand equity and that kind of thing. But and you can do a Kickstarter campaign to afford the cost of the actual recording and paying the musicians and the mixing and mastering, which all of that really adds up. In my case, I'm doing it to be able to afford the promotion package that I want to. I've made the album. I wanted to get it out there. I want it to be heard by a wider audience than it would be if I just released it myself. Yeah. I feel like the music deserves to be heard by a wider audience. And so what I'm using it for is to pay for a publicist, to pay for a radio promoter to get it on the chart,
Yeah,
to
the distribution, yeah.
So that they'll have any chance of even hearing it. Do you know how many CDs, they show up every day? If you don't have someone putting a bug in their ear, they won't play your record,
Yeah.
So just to give it a chance, to try and get a chance to get on Spotify playlists. I want to press vinyl. Like the minimum, basically, to even press the minimum amount of vinyl is $2,500. I spent like $600 or $700 in stamps the other day.
Oh my gosh.
For my radio mail. Yeah, like all this stuff, and I had to press like 220 albums to just give to radios. So I mean, that costs like $1,200 to do this radio mailing. Yeah. But I want to get on the radar of the Americana Music Association if I'm ever going to get nominated for an award or being included in their showcases, and like just to get on the radar, it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, you got to, as you're pointing out, you got to press the numbers to get them to justify supporting you to fill out the paperwork to get on the awards.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I already spent like a large amount of my own money to make this album and to have it produced, mixed, mastered. I paid for all the photo shoot, the hair and makeup, the album art. I paid for all that myself. I still need to pay my mortgage,
Yeah.
like about as much as I can afford to spend, and still have a chance of sending my kids to college, and keep toilet paper in the house. So that's why I'm crowdfunding for this next part of it, because it's not something we have to spend, of our own money, but it's something it's my dream.
Well, and that's the theme of our show today, is living the dream, not just chasing it, but actually living your dream is our show theme today.
And I will say, like, setting the goal for $25,000, I was like, maybe I shouldn't, like, maybe I should just do 10,000, but that wouldn't have paid for what I want to do for it, and I just decided to take a risk. And do I regret it in moments over the last 3 weeks? Yes, because there's all the uncertainty of like, oh, am I gonna make it? I don't want to lose it all. Maybe I should have set a lower goal, but like, I did the numbers. That's how much it would cost to promote the album the way I want to.
Well, and
so
I have to commend you. I have to commend you for that, Susie, because you got to draw a line in the sand. And as my grandfather always told me when I was a kid, if you set your sights for the cherry on top of the sundae, the worst that will happen is you'll fall in the whipped cream, because you got to strive for it. Now, as I say that, I want to also do a little bit of a commercial kind of thing here. I'm very casual with my commercials. Is being able to say to everybody out there that Susie Brown is our guest today on KUHS Denver on 360 Performance. We're talking about living your dreams in real time, setting goals for yourself that match up to what you envisioned months or years before, that started you on a journey. Well, every day, live that dream. Put a perspective together that makes you feel good about what you're doing, and that you set the $25,000 goal for yourself. And ask people, share with people your expectation for that, so that they get an idea of how they can really, truly support you. So with that being said, we're at the next moment where I've asked Susie to share with us a little bit more music. Once again, she's got an album coming out. May 20th is the release date.
Mm-hmm.
And we have some singles that are coming out today, but it's up to her as to what she wants to share with us in this moment. Here's Susie Brown.
I'm going to play this song. It's called Another New Normal. This one I actually released about a year ago. It is going to be on the album, Another New Normal. You can see, what the topic is. And man, were we in a rush to get this out before it became irrelevant. Little did we know it would be relevant for quite a time. But I love this song. Yeah, it kind of came out of thinking about, this is a big, big change we've all gone through. And it's a big new normal to get used to. And not to take away from that, but like, how many other new normals have we had? And how many will we continue to have that we'll have to adjust to? And sort of thinking, like, how resilient we are as a group of people, and that this is not the last new normal, and it's not the first, and it won't be the last. It's called Another New Normal. I ain't the praying type, but lately I've been praying to whatever's in the sky. I ain't the changing type, but times they keep on changing. I'm always a step behind. I've been trying, getting used to a new normal. Feels like I always am. Just when I can get used to a new normal, all over again. If it ain't one thing, it's something else. Ain't life just hellos and farewells? I've been trying to get used to a new normal. It's just another new normal.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. That so resonates for me. I did so much Zoom calling during the pandemic because typically I'm out on a field, I'm in a stadium, I'm,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
oh my goodness. And to see the desperation in the faces of these very active human beings that are now not able to do that.
Can't imagine.
It was,
That's like the full identity.
I went into
Yeah.
therapy just for myself.
Sure, you didn't during COVID.
It was, so I'm glad we're at where we're at, but we're not out of it. It's gonna be an endemic if it's not already there. And yet, we're gonna deal with it, we're gonna manage it. So you're gonna go on tour, but it's kind of, it's your tour. It's when I say that, I mean modified for Susie Brown, because I'm guessing you have a radius so far away from Nashville, you try to stay within?
Yeah, because I really only have 2 weeks at a time to go out, so I can only go so far.
So where are you going? Tell people where they can expect to see you. What states?
Okay, well, we're going, let's see, let me think about it in my head. Knoxville, May
Yep.
31st.
Yep.
Boston, June 2nd. New York City, June 6th was just my birthday.
Oh, congratulations for that. Great time to be on your birthday.
Philadelphia on June 8th. And then we're Pittsburgh, June 9th, playing a private show, but also trying to line up another show in Pittsburgh. And then
You're in Ohio?
and then going back to work for a couple weeks, and then back out to Worthington, Ohio, on July, let me look,
Yep.
I don't want to get it wrong, July 7th, and then we're playing in Indiana, White's Head, Indiana, July 8th, and then Loveland, Ohio, July 9th, and then Asheville, North Carolina, July 14th, and possibly a Charlotte date in there as well.
Awesome.
And then Nashville album release show is June 19th at the City Winery.
My one of my favorite places in it's not too far from Vanderbilt is the Row. Where I
Oh, I haven't been there.
oh yeah I love the Row because it's close to where I stay at the Marriott right next door to
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And then I hang out and talk to folks I know around the Vanderbilt area. But the winery, I've been to the winery. So
Oh, yeah, I love it.
yeah, I'm hoping to be back into Nashville in August and September. I mean, you and I will talk a little bit more later, but and I'll talk to Patrick about this too. I have a bucket list of things to do in the music business. I want to create a showcase writers workshop where songwriters come together in a more formalized workshop where when we break away from the thinking process of writing a song, we're performing, we're having fun, we're, kind of ad-libbing with one another. And I want to do that in a controlled chaos.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, because I think that'll support creativity, and I've got some colleagues of mine that are producers in Nashville that
Okay.
I'll have them hang out as well. The pandemic also caused people to hide in the shadows, and some of them are still not out yet in the light, and yet they're very, very talented. So in addition to there being a labor problem with people wanting to go to work, there's also a finding talent. And where are they? Where have you gone? And what are you doing? So I wanted to make sure people knew where you were going to be at in the very near future. So
Thank you.
as we get close to the end of the show, take a look at your phone, give us another update. Let's see if we've made any impact on the 25,000. I'm hoping we might have. But as you're doing that, I'm going to remind people that our show today will be kind of smoothed out and cleaned up a little bit and put on podcast. So it will go on Spotify. I'm on Spotify.
Great.
And I'm on Google, and I'm on Apple, iTunes. So we're putting what we've done today by Monday. It will be out there on the podcast of 360 Performance, showcasing our visit here with Susie Brown. Susie, you started the show off by telling me about what you are really grateful for, and that's family. And so as you move forward, if one of your children said, "Mom, I want to be a singer-songwriter too," what would you say to them, Susie?
I want my kids to be exactly who they want to be. I don't have an agenda for my kids.
Awesome.
My job is to love them unconditionally and guide them on their own journey.
That's awesome. I guess I shouldn't have expected anything less than that from you. So when you look at that possibilities for them, and you sing your songs to whomever, or you're working on a song at home, what has been the feedback? I mean, I love kids' minds because they're so not filtered. They're not filtered. Yeah. So what do they say to you? What are some of the things you hear from them when you're getting the songs together?
Well, I can tell when they like it because they'll be singing it. Like if it's hooky enough,
yeah,
they'll be singing it while they're playing or something.
Are either of them musically inclined?
They both love me. They're only 8 and 6.
Yeah.
So it's still early, and we haven't pushed them into music lessons of any kind because I want it to come from them.
Yep.
I don't care.
Yep.
Like I just want them. So they've taken a few guitar lessons, but a few drum lessons. But they'll make up songs on their own, and they love to sing. So, yeah.
It is. Now you live in the Nashville area. You said on the east side of Nashville, and I'm more than casually familiar with Nashville. But people on the outside go, "Oh yeah, Nashville, Music City, blah 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 blah," and they would think that everybody in Nashville can play guitar, right? Or everybody in Nashville has some kind of twangy, rhythmic sound to their voice. Well, that's not really the case.
Yeah, there are a lot of different types of music here.
Yeah, that's really what surprises me. So, when you're looking at your journey going forward from here, are there any stylistic areas of music you want to try and incorporate it into your songwriting?
I don't really think about it like that. I just kind of write what I'm feeling. I try not to be too intentional to sound like anything else because I don't want it to be kind of like contrived and derivative. So I think my new music evolves more as a result of what I've been listening to than something I'm like purposely as I'm writing it saying like I want this to sound like Chris Stapleton or something. That was especially like that's never been more the case than this album where we were deep in a pandemic. I was nowhere close to releasing any of these songs, and we just like played with sounds and played